I have quite a funny fucking story for you guys today, and someone sent this one through, and it was I don't think I've stopped laughing at it. Like, every time I read it, it's hilarious. Now, it is a bit of a dark one. You have been warned. You have been warned. I don't think it's the darkest thing we've ever read on this podcast because God knows we love the dark humor on here, which is why we do it. Because they say that if you are an emergency service worker, then you are going to be probably a little bit fucked in the head. I think that's a fair fair assessment. It's a bit of a fair assessment because naturally the trauma, the pain, the death, the stress, the bloodshed, everything what we deal with behind the veil of society, the normal people, civilians, etc., wouldn't have a clue what we're even talking about. And that has actually just reminded me. I'm going to make a note of that actually, 'cause that just reminded me a little story what I want to tell you as we get onto it. I write the word journalist. I write the word journalist, and you can guess what goes on in a second. So, as always, if you have a story to tell, you can send it through to the jobpod25 at gmail.com, or you can DM me on Instagram at the Jobs Foot Podcast. In case you haven't noticed, I'm trying to talk a bit slower because not like anybody said that I sound like I've got Roadrunner in my mouth, but I've maybe noticed it with myself a little bit. It's like, just, dude, chill the fuck out. Like, we're here to listen to you. You're giving me a fucking headache. And that's just me when I'm editing these podcasts. I'm listening back to them, like, my God, I talk too fucking quick. Um, but also, the main thing is, what if I was to tell you that you don't have to be exhausted all the time as an emergency service worker? Too tired for date night, can't focus on when you're spending time with your own children, feeling unconfident and stressed on shift, and you're surviving on caffeine and Costco cookies on shift. I know because I've been there. I've been there myself. Well, thankfully, if you are feeling like that, then you don't have to because I can give you support with that. As you know, I have my shift proof community, a dedicated place for emergency service workers, and we've just launched trainerized gym workouts too. So every week you get three workouts. So you get a upper workout, a lower workout, and a full body workout, all which can be done in under 60 minutes to work around your busy shift and busy schedules. So I'm not obviously like trying to say that. What I'm trying to say is you can get a free load of support from the link in the description of this video called 14 Ways in 14 Days. That is 14 days of emails you will receive from me, which will talk about sleep, diet, exercise, mindset, decompression, unraveling after work, unwinding after work, how to sleep better at nights. There's loads and loads of good stuff because this is why we're here. We're here, we're a community, we're all having a great time. You guys do a fantastic fucking job. You guys go out and deal with the worst thing what society has to offer. And I sit here and I talk about your funny stories, your rants, and your accolades. So, it's a great little relationship we got on. It's a great thing we got going here. And I absolutely love it. So, okay, let's crack on. The story of the week is a bit of a heavy one, this, and I feel like I'm saying this more and more. But there is a page, if you don't know, called UK Cop Humor on Instagram. It's a very, very good page. There is a story, and it says the thin blue line gets thinner still. So West Midlands Police have just confirmed the death of Detective Constable Tayab Malik, aged 35. DC Malik was sadly found to have passed away in Billesley, Birmingham, on the afternoon of Tuesday, the 24th of February 2026. His loss will be deeply felt across the force and wider policing family. Police have stated his death is not being treated as suspicious and a file is being prepared for the coroner. Assistant Chief Constable Mike O'Hara said the force is devastated by the news and that Tayab will be hugely missed by his colleagues and his friends across West Midlands Police. Tayab's family and friends paid tribute, remembering him as a dedicated, serving police officer and as a beloved son, husband, brother, friend, and nephew. They said there are no words to describe the depth of their loss and that he will always remain in their hearts. Today, we remember DC Malik for the service he gave, the people he protected, and the colleagues he stood alongside. Policing is more than a job, it is a calling, and every day our officers walk into danger so others can walk in safety. That service comes with sacrifice, and when one of our own is lost, the whole family feels it. Our thoughts are with DC Malik's family, his friends, and everyone at West Midlands Police who are grieving his loss. Rest in peace. Stay safe out there and look out for each other. That is a beautiful post. And I'm deeply, deeply saddened to hear that a DC, an officer, mid 30s, um, has sadly lost their life. It obviously doesn't go into detail about what's happened, and I wouldn't wanna, throw out conjecture out there. Regardless, it's a tragic loss, and if you knew DC Malik, then I'm very sorry for your loss. I'm sure they were a wonderful, wonderful person and a fantastic officer who walked that thin blue line. And the thin blue line, unfortunately, has gotten a little bit thinner as a result of that. So truly, truly tragic and very, very sad. Um, but yeah, and yeah, I mean, if anyone has suffered anything like that and they are struggling, the resource and charities out there. You can always comment on this video. You can always drop me a message. It's fine. But yeah, really, really sad, really upsetting. And I know that recently there was another sergeant, again, I think West Mids, who passed away, who sadly lost their life in whatever circumstance. But yeah, it's truly, truly tragic. So thank you, DC Malik, for everything what you did and for keeping us safe. I'm sure you touched the lives of many, many people, and I'm sure you've made a huge positive impact. And this is the thing about, like, people talk about karma, and people talk about karma like it's the karmatic effect of something you do ripples throughout time. So if you help one person, that person may then help somebody else. And then those two people may then help two others, and then two others. And it can ripple over generations. It can just ripple and ripple and ripple. So one good interaction, you help one person, the ripple of that through time is immeasurable. It's huge. So when people talk about karma, they think about it being then and there, but it's really something much greater than that, something bigger than ourselves. And one thing what people would say to me when, I get messages of people is they go, I'm very frustrated with my job at the minute. I'm very frustrated. I feel like I'm not helping anybody. And I've actually got a story relating to that for this episode. And it's that ripple effect. It's a drop in the ocean, and it's the ripples what keep on going. So, and with enough ripples, it creates a tidal wave, doesn't it? It's a beautiful thing. And we have to remember that when we are dealing with incidents and we are dealing with people, our actions in isolation may not seem like they amount to very much, but over time and over space, they really, really do. For example, one of the last big incidents I dealt with, it was a young lady who was a nurse and she was being stalked by a partner, her ex-partner. I worked tirelessly on that case, really, really put a lot of effort into it. He ended up getting charged, get a restraining order, everything else. Um, but now she's got a very positive impression of the police and the support services out there too, which means that she is now, because I thought that this was a homicide waiting to happen. I thought this girl was really seriously going to get very injured by this guy with how he was. And because of the help I gave her, she's now going on helping other people who in turn will help other people. So when we think of it like that, it's actually massive what we do. It's beautiful what we do. And I just wanted to share that with you. Would you think that you're not doing enough? You think that the job is taking so much from you? You think that you are pouring yourself into people's lives and you're not getting anything from it. In isolation, it may not seem like you're doing very much, but in reality, you are doing immeasurable good over time. And I just thought I'd share that. And another thing I wanted to just talk about was, I'm probably going to butcher this. You will have to bear with me. But when people turn around and they say, I could do a better job than you, I could do this, I could do that. Well, in America, they actually tested it. And what they did was and I heard about this with Constantine Kissin on a James Smith podcast. And for those of you who are still listening to this after I've just mentioned those people's names, um, so there was a journalist who was very anti-police, and what they did was they went on a ride along, and they created a setup. They created this. They gave this journalist a gun with blanks, and they set up a violent confrontation to see how the journalist would react. Because of course they're very critical and said, "I could do that better. I could do this better." And what happened was The journalist fired their weapon and would have killed the guy who approached them much faster than any police officer would have done. Much more reactive, much more, oh my God, I'm in this violent situation. And they couldn't justify pulling the trigger. Um, and I believe they put them in another situation where someone was getting something out of a car. And the first time they did it, it was a gun. And the journalist would have been shot. And then they ran it again. And the next time the person went to get something out of the car, the journalist shot them. And he was just reaching for his phone. And they were saying, well, that was a black man. Are you now racist? Are you now shooting black people? And the guy's like, no, 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 God, no, not of course. Of course I'm not. And it's like, well, you you can stand there on the sidelines, you can criticize the work that police officers do, but when you're in that situation, you actually react much worse and much more abhorrently and much less justified in your actions than what the police officers who you are criticizing have acted. So it just goes to show, like, armchair detectives, people on the sidelines, people on social media are very fast to criticize people in situations they will never be in with all the information post the event, because they can go, well, he didn't have a gun, or he didn't do that, or he didn't do that. Like, yeah, we know that now, but the officer at the time didn't, and the officer at the time reasonably believed and had an honest held belief that their life was in danger as a result of the countless other interactions what they've experienced, which has given them that excuse me, which has given them that idea that that can happen. So when people criticize you online, who gives a fuck is what I'm trying to say. Like, unless you're in the position, and I always say to people, join as a volunteer. If you think you can do a better job, if you see something online, you think you can do a better job, join as a volunteer. See how well you do. But anyway, right. So let's get on to some funny fucking stories and some funny fucking accolades right now. You beautiful, beautiful people. I love this podcast. It's basically just me in my front room, just shouting and chatting into a microphone with some notes and a cup of coffee as well, and a cup of coffee. You should really join my 14 days in 14 ways. I'm just saying, it's actually very, very good, and the community I've built as well is actually quite exceptional. And it is very underpriced. I will say it's very underpriced for what you're getting. I would actually like to charge more, but I don't want to become extortionate. But I mean, I think I could potentially double the price and it still be justified. But I'm not going to do that. Not yet, anyway. Uh, anyway, okay. So I got this message through, and this might piss you off. Just saying. I'm interested actually in your thoughts in this. I am quite interested in your thoughts. Another sip of coffee before we get going. All right. I was contacted the other week by a mate who was fuming. Turns out he went to a job with a colleague and he'd ended up with a use of force being needed. My mate used force, but their colleague didn't want to get hands on. Obviously, this isn't fair on anyone as it risks unnecessary injury to all involved. My mate understandably lost his shit. My mate understandably lost their shit and remonstrated with said colleague. Said colleague then went crying to the shift sergeant, saying they'd been a victim of an assault without battery, as my mate's shouting put them in fear. Words fail me. Now, when I read that, my words also failed me too. Words also failed me. That's a typical thing of crying to the teacher. The amount of bollockings I got when I was in my tutor phase from making the wrong decision, saying the wrong thing, learning, making mistakes. I used to work. One of my favorite officers in the world was, he was like 10, 15 years in, cracking bloke. If he's listening, he'll know exactly who he is. Captain Birdseye. That's all I'll say. That's all I'll say. Um, Really brilliant Bobby, brilliant Bobby. Um, and if you fucked up or you did something wrong, oh my, he would tell you. He would tell you, because we're not working at Microsoft. We're not working in Starbucks where, you fuck up, someone just gets a bad cup of coffee. Like, we're dealing with people's lives. We're often dealing with violent situations. We're dealing with high intense situations and high pressure situations. So naturally, if you do something wrong, the ramifications of that can be actually quite severe. So it makes sense that if you do something wrong, you're going to get bollocked. Also, if you're with a colleague, I have to know that the person next to me, and we've all had that colleague who we've gone out with where you're basically single crewed because they're not going to get involved if shit kicks off. And I know that I needed to know when I was paired up with somebody and they did the crewing in the morning or the evening or whatever, that the person next to you, or even if you're single crewed and the person who attends the job to give you a lift, if shit kicks off, you need to know that that person is going to look after you and you're going to look after them. It's a mutual thing. If that social contract fails, then quite naturally you're going to be annoyed at that and you're not going to want to crew with them again because it's dangerous. If I'm wrestling with someone on the ground, I need to know that my colleague is going to be there to support me and to help me. If they then, for whatever reason, do not get involved, maybe they're fearful, maybe they don't have the right confidence, maybe they don't think it's justified. There's a problem there. There's an officer safety problem there. But that aside, having a stern word with a colleague, having a stern word with somebody used to just be, you fucked up there, you pissed me off, I'm annoyed with you. Why is it now not only I'm unhappy with how they've spoken to me and go and run into the teacher and saying I'm unhappy with how they've spoken to me. Why are they now trying to criminalize their colleague and say, I have been a victim of an assault because I felt uncomfortable with how that person spoke to me? They made me feel fear. It's utter bollocks. It's ridiculous that this even happened. I can't believe that somebody has been in this position, a police officer who's meant to be able to be a bit more robust than the ordinary members of the public. And they're and because they were bollocked, because they were told they weren't very good in that situation, and the person has less confidence in them now than they had before, why is that grounds for saying, I feel the victim of an assault? Get a fucking grip. If you can't handle being bollocked or being told off, don't do the job. Life is not filled with puppies and rainbows. You're in the goddamn police. You're on the edge, the razor edge of society. You're going to encounter things, sometimes of colleagues, that make you feel a bit uncomfortable or a bit sad. Tough shit. Be a big boy or a big girl and deal with it. That's what I got to say about that one. However, I'm always eager to hear other people's points of view in relation to things like this. Do you think that that person was justified in running to their sergeant and complaining? Do you think that they should have complained with how they were spoken to and aired that they feel they were the victim of a verbal assault? Or even they should have had a chat with them and want some kind of reprimand put in place? Or do you think shit happens. Sometimes you get it right, sometimes you get it wrong. You have to take it, take it like a grown up, is what I'd say. All right. So this next one is an interesting one. This is a classical example of stat chasing. This is a classic example of somebody's had their feelings hurt. And not only that, but somebody who wasn't involved has put a hate element on the incident, which has then triggered a hate element. This is why I think hate crimes, they get so fucking abused. Like, the initial thing with hate crimes is obviously quite admirable. Don't target people based off their protected characteristics and everything else. Completely agree with that. You shouldn't assault someone. Someone shouldn't be a victim of a crime simply because of who they are or their disability, sex, or, whatever else. I'm just gonna read it out. I'm just gonna read it out, and you be the judge. You be the judge as to whether you think this was justified or not. When I was a probationer, I went to take a report on a racial incident that had occurred on a bus earlier that day. I knocked on the door and a young Indian girl, around 12 years old, wearing a school uniform, answered. I asked for her mother, but she said no one was home, and then said it was her who called the police when she got home after school. Um, I sat around for an hour as she went on about how some young black schoolboys were shouting, swearing, and saying rude words on the bus. I assumed the next bit was going to be how they'd racially abused the young Indian girl. No, she said, with a very serious look on her face, that she overheard a grey haired old lady that she described as being about 80 years old said, no wonder they have bad reputations, look at them. I said, was that it? Did they hear what was said? No, she replied. They were at the back of of the bus shouting, and we were at the front. I said, so no racial comments were made, no use of any derogatory words related to their skin color. She said, no. How do you know she was being racist and wasn't just commenting about the rowdy schoolboys? She replied that she felt it was racist. It was a racist comment because they were all black and she was old. I left with my head spinning. When I got back to the station, I told my supervisor, thinking he would laugh out loud. He said, "Anyone can feel racially discriminated against on someone else's behalf, even if the victim didn't want to report it, didn't hear it, or didn't even perceive it as racist." And then told me I need to get CCTV from the bus to trace the unknown older lady. I should have quit there and then. The job's fucked. By the way, she was never traced. So essentially, what's happened is this young girl has been on the bus. There's been a load of young lads in the back of the bus who happen to be black. Um, as a result of their behaviour, a unknown elderly lady has said it's no wonder they have a bad reputation. As a result of that, this young lady has then believed that she's inferring to their race, the race of the children, and not their behaviour. So she believes she's inferred it's no wonder they have a bad reputation, meaning people of that demographic. Not it's no wonder they have a bad reputation, meaning young rowdy boys. Um, and there's the important thing: the children, the young boys who were subject to this, these words, this comment of this elderly lady, did not hear it. No explicit racial language was used. They didn't hear it, and you can see what I mean? Like this is completely backwards for me. In my mind, it should be for a hate crime to be committed, the victim of the hate crime should be the one to say, I was a victim of that hate crime. Because here's the thing about this is the worrying thing. My book's just fallen over. Sorry about that. Here's the worrying thing. Potentially, what could have happened then is the police could have located this elderly lady, potentially arrested her. It's unlikely to have happened, but she could have been under some kind of criminal investigation as a result of that for simply saying it's no wonder they have a bad reputation and somebody taking that out of context. Somebody who wasn't involved, no racial comments were made. The people involved who were subject of, the subjects of these comments were then they didn't hear it. They didn't hear it. They had no idea what had been said. So not only would you have to find and trace the lady who was the alleged perpetrator of a hate crime, but you would also have to track down each one of these young black boys and say, if someone said this to you, do you think it's a hate crime? Or what do you think she meant by that? It's kind of like you're feeding the answer to them. Because if then they go, well, she's clearly saying that because I'm black, it's like, okay, well, then a hate crime has been committed because now the police have put it towards them, they've traced them, they've found them, they've said, "Do you think there's a hate crime?" And if they go, "Yeah," well, then that's like fucking sixth hand down the line, isn't it? With a lot of inferring there. Um, Load of shit, load of shit. It shouldn't happen. This is the difficult thing when it comes to policing speech, is because it can become so subjective. So subjective. And the sergeant who said that, it's like, I understand that anyone can be a victim of a hate crime and anyone can believe that it is a hate crime. I use an example in my book. I say, if John and Terry are sat in a beer garden and one makes a homophobic comment to the other, having a laugh, a barmaid or barman might be able to walk past and go, I believe that's a hate crime, that's offensive. They bring up the police, a hate crime's then logged. Police might turn up and say, well, do you know this? I believe Katie Hopkins, actually, funny enough, Constantine Kissing and Katie Hopkins in one episode. God, am I looking to get cancelled or what? I believe she was investigated by the police because she referred to herself as a spaz because she has a disability. So because she's referred to herself as a derogatory term for somebody who has a disability, she was investigated for a hate crime on herself. Fucking what is going on? What is going on with this fucking legislation? It's insane. It's ridiculous. And like I said, literally anyone can say anything. And if someone believes it's a hate crime, then it will be logged and reported as a hate crime. It's insane. It is ridiculous. And don't even get me started on non-crime hate incidents. Fuck me, they are a complete waste of time. Because apparently, non-cry hate incident, saying something bad in your own home or in the privacy of your own home, um, can lead to fucking genocide if you look at the pyramid of it all. Absolutely nuts. However, we do like nuance on this podcast. We do like to get into the grey area a little bit. Do you think that the officer should have looked and gone to find this elderly lady, this elderly bigots of a human being? Um, what's your thoughts? What's your thoughts? Let me know. Comments. Drop me a message. I'm always happy to hear it. Okay, couple more. Couple more. Okay. The most ridiculous job I've ever dealt with was on a Sunday late turn. Sunday, 6 o'clock on a Sunday is when the world goes mad. Suicide Sunday is what we used to refer to it as, because 6 o'clock, everyone goes crazy. It's when all the domestics come in. It's when everyone wants to top themselves when they realize they don't want to go back to work on Monday, or more likely, they've had a heavy weekend and they're on a come down. Just saying, that's what I normally found. Late turn, and an entire street erupted because a cat walked across some fresh concrete. Fucking hell. Stop it. There were kids' grandparents. She ain't got on a bus by any chance, is she? I was thinking of something. I'm not going to say it. There were kids' grandparents, parents ripping each other apart because of this fucking cat. I got 3 prisoners from the whole group, and the cat got brought in as an exhibit. Fucking priceless. I don't know if I believe the cat was seized as an exhibit. I don't believe that happened. Maybe a photo of the cat or something. Maybe it did. Maybe I know a guy who sees a load of fish. He sees a load of fish in an evidence bag because the inspector said this person can't keep animals, and he sees all his fish, and needless to say, the fish fucking died. He's booked them into the property system, and the fish fucking died. Like, so it's not beyond the realms of possibility, but I think it's a bit of a fast stretch to take in a cat. Absolutely, Tiddles. What happened? What did the nasty people say to you, Tiddles? It is him. You see, he's got dried concrete on his paws. Fucking crazy. 3 prisoners from that. Honestly, like neighbor disputes and things in the street, they can kick off like crazy. You can go absolutely mental. It really can. I remember an old beat sergeant saying to me once, like a lot of murders happen over disputes, neighborhood disputes, like parking spaces, putting the bins out, hedges, noise, stuff like that. And I can understand why, because if you're living next to somebody who's a nightmare, that can build and build and build and build. At least if you deal with someone at work or you deal with something out on the street, you can get away from it. But if you live fucking next to them, it's a bit hard. So, yeah, carnage, chaos and carnage is what I'd say. Tiddles, who who told you you were not a good boy? Okay. So I've got the death one here. I've got the dark one I was going to talk about, but I've got a nice one. I've got a nice one I want to share with you first. And this goes back to what I said to do with karma and to do with the effect what our actions can have rippling through time. So bear with me. And again, like I say, if you have a story you want to tell, it don't have to be bad, don't have to be good, it could be funny, whatever. Drop me a message, email me, send me a note, whatever. Hi, mate. Just wanted to share something with you. Today was one of those shifts that made me realize something important to myself. Recently, if I'm being honest, I felt less motivated in the job, a bit drained, like compassion fatigue might be creeping in. A very real thing. You should be aware of it. But today, we went to a domestic call that reminded me of why I joined. The victim had traveled miles from home to be with family and speak to police for the first time about 20 years of abuse. 20 years. It was one of those calls that couldn't be rushed. It needed time, patience, and empathy. We were there for over 2 hours, and even then, it felt like we'd only just scratched the surface. I didn't finish until the early hours of the morning, well past the end of our duty, making sure everything was recorded properly and safeguarding was considered. It was complex, mostly historic. They didn't want to provide a statement or support police action because of the children and everything that comes with a breakup. And just on that, people say, "Oh, if you're being abused, why don't you just leave?" Taking away all the psychological impacts of controlling coercive behavior and cycles of abuse and codependency, taking all of that away, and manipulation too, taking all that away, we also have to consider if someone's been with someone for 10, 20 years, they're tied to them in every way, financially, children, the lot. So it's not as easy as saying, why don't you just leave? Well, why does the abuser fucking do it? Should be the question we ask. Um, and I'll be honest, at part of me felt helpless, like there wasn't much I could do beyond advice and reassurance. But walking away, I realized something. I still cared deeply. I still had patience. I still had empathy. I still wanted to sit there and listen. And even when it meant going home late and carrying the weight of it, that compassion I thought I was losing, it was still there. Maybe I just needed a reminder. Sometimes it takes one call, one human moment to remind you who you are beneath the fatigue. I thought I would just share that. That is a beautiful message. And I'm like I said, maybe then you gave them the strength to actually walk away. Maybe as a result of listening, you just made them feel heard and feel validated. Because as a victim of abuse myself, um, you feel like you're not going to be believed. Certainly as a man, and you've got a female who's abusive, you can feel like you're not being believed. You can feel that you actually don't even might even realize that what is happening is abuse, that it is gaslighting, or it is controlling behavior. You know, you you learn to manage the other person in the best way. And yes, there's still going to be a blowout and everything else. And sometimes what I used to find, and I know people of abuse have told me this, is that sometimes when you can feel it building, you can feel the tension in the air. So it's almost like you will intentionally provoke them to get the blowout out of the way, because then he's all kind and happy and everything else after that. So this person may have felt that they weren't going to be believed, and just having somebody sit there with them for hours on end and speak to them and just listen to what they want to say, that's an amazing thing what you did. And this person may leave them in the future. They may um, go and support other people and help other people. Like I said, it's that drop in the water, and it's that ripple effect. And you should be very, very proud of yourself for the wonderful work what you've done. 20 years of abuse, and you sat there and you listened and you took the time, and you, even though they didn't want to make a complaint, you did everything you could at that moment in time. And that's a brilliant, brilliant thing. That's a wonderful, wonderful thing what you did. Um, I remember I had a case, and it was historic. It was like they broke up 5 years ago, but they've been together like 15 years, and there was all sorts involved. He'd bugged the house. I believe, he poisoned her at one point with a medication. There was loads of stuff, and she was the same. She sat down and she wanted to speak to me over the phone first. She made an online submission, and we spoke on the phone for a little bit. And then I said to her, "Well, tell you what, why don't you come in? Why don't you come into the station and we'll do this? We'll sit down, and you don't have to make a complaint if you don't want to, but I would like to meet you, and we can talk, and we can, I'll put my radio away for a bit. You sound serious. Let's get it all down." And honestly, we spoke for about, similar to you, for about an hour and a half, 2 hours, and all the way through it, she was just going, "I'm wasting your time. I'm wasting your time." It's like, listen, no, what you're saying is serious. What you're saying, this has happened, and what you're saying is real, and I'm going to validate what you're saying. You can provide evidence of it, and there are other people in your family who've also seen things like that. So you're not on your own with these sorts of things as well. So, and similar to yourself, I felt like after that I made a done a good job. And a bit different, she did end up making a complaint, and the bloke was arrested. And I interviewed him for 2.5 hours, actually. 2.5 hours. It was my longest interview I'd ever done. And we were just going through everything. We talking. He denied the lot, of course. He denied everything, and then he ended up actually dying before I took the case to the Crown Prosecution Service. And I'm always curious actually what would have happened, whether he would have been charged or not. And I think he would have been. I think he would have been. I think he would have been convicted with the amount of evidence we had against him. But yeah, it's yeah, yeah, I think he was quite ill. It was a shocking phone call to get off the victim to say, "Oh, by the way, like, he's dead." I was like, "All right." The bosses were happy because I know this, weirdly enough, that went down as like 8 detections for the organization, which is just fucked up, in it. It's just messed up that this person's died and they've gone, "Oh, nice one. Makes us look better then." How does that? But the victim got listened to, the victim got heard, they got understood, and they sent through a really, really nice, thing in relation to me and the service they'd got and everything else. So that meant a lot. Meant a lot. Okay, so last one. Last one. I'm going to finish on. I think this is fucking hilarious. You might not, but I do, and I'm a bit twisted when it comes to my sense of humor. So here's one. I work in the control room. Not long ago, we had a sudden death. You know where this is going. I work in the control room. Not long ago, we had a sudden death. The skipper was made aware, and the unit was assigned. Moments later, the unit said over the radio when they were on their way, "What are the circumstances?" I replied, "A bloke's dead." Just a deadpan. I would love to have heard that. Yeah, yeah. So I'm on my way out. What circumstances of this job? "Oh, fucking bloke's dead, mate. Like that's the circle. What more do you want? I don't know. Go and find out what's happened. I love that. Just how deadpan they are. That's ace. And call takers and people who work in the control room, they really are the unsung heroes. I worked with. I used to have two main call handlers and people in the radio, and they were absolutely fantastic. They were brilliant, really, really good. Um, yeah, Rebecca Savage. If you ever watch this, Rebecca Savage, you know who you are. You're absolutely fucking wonderful, and I'm very happy to see that you're doing so well now, and that you're very, very happy. But yeah, you were a very good laugh and a brilliant call handler and a brilliant person in the control room when I was working under you. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is everything. Remember, if you have any stories you want to tell, anything you want to say, anything you want to send through, by all means, feel free to carry on watching this channel. Feel free to carry on listening to this podcast for more hilarious stories relating to the emergency services. And yeah, check out this one here. Do whatever. Recommend this podcast to somebody, please. Without your stories, without the engagement, the podcast kind of dies. So I want to keep doing this as long as possible. And yeah, like I said, if you need some support, 14 Ways in 14 Days is in the link in my description, which is fucking around here somewhere, depending on who you're watching this. Have a wonderful day. You stay safe. Take care. Love ya.